Hey guys, welcome back to Hook with Anime. If you like the video, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Uzushiogakure, Unknown, -15 years ago. The sound of pouring rain echoed in the darkness of Uzushiogakure. Kushina Uzumaki screamed as she pushed her newborn son out of her body. One of the maids instructed Kushina, "Come on Kushina-chan, push." After an intense few minutes, Kushina's baby boy had finally born. She looked at her son and smiled. She said, "His name will be Uzumaki Naruto. Yes, he shall be a powerful heir to the throne." A gruff voice echoed through the room. She tiredly looked at her father, Uzumaki Arashi. His hair was white but still had red tufts in places. He wore the royal Uzumaki armor, which was black with a red spiral imprinted in the middle and a golden cloak bellowing behind him. The Uzumaki clan were a clan descended from the old gods and ancient demons, most notably Odin and Kaguya Otsutsuki. The clan was split into two categories: the royal bloods that were the most powerful of the clan and the branch members who were practically the foot soldiers. The Uzumaki had long since hidden themselves from the world due to the fact that they believed humans to be evil, and they were right in a sense. They watched as war after war plagued this earth, and most recently the surge in super-powered beings. The Uzumaki clan's powers were derived from the source and their demonic heritage, hence their powers varied. An example would be Uzumaki Kushina, who had the ability of instant regeneration and can summon the chains of hell capable of sealing any being. The strongest were even proclaimed gods amongst their own clan members, and that was exactly what Naruto would become. Arashi looked at his daughter and said, "Rest, my daughter. We have much to discuss when you have returned to full health." His armor rattled as he walked out of the room. 8 years later, Naruto sat in a circle where 20 branch Uzumaki warriors surrounded him. The branch members were dressed in white armor with a red spiral and had katanas in their hands. Naruto wore a miniature black armor with a golden cloak. He had red hair and glowing purple eyes. Uzumaki Arashi looked at his grandson and said, "Naruto, today we will begin the process of finding out what your powers are. The first task is to defeat these warriors." Arashi clapped and the group charged at Naruto with supernatural speeds. Arashi instructed, "Find your inner powers, Naruto, or you will die." Naruto closed his eyes and began focusing on his core, something that all Uzumakis had. When he opened his eyes, he saw a warrior about to stab him in the chest. However, it was as if he could see the warrior in slow motion. He quickly dived to the side and so the man slowly missed him. Arashi smirked, "Super speed, huh? How interesting. It's been a while since an Uzumaki was born with this ability." Kushina, on the other hand, was worried sick. She did this test and only survived due to her immense regeneration. She hoped her son was as powerful as Arashi believed him to be. Naruto dodged several sword attacks before the group switched gears and started using elemental attacks. Naruto dodged a fireball but was struck by a bolt lightning, causing him to scream in pain. Kushina almost jumped in the arena to get her son, but Arashi stopped her. "Father, we need." Arashi and Kushina saw Naruto punch a man with enough force to send him flying into the wall and create a spider crack. Naruto began dodging and punching. He managed to defeat 13 enemies, but the other 7 were on a class of their own. One branch member floated in the air and began using his unique power, which allowed him to produce explosive fire. Naruto dove to the side, but the explosive shockwave made him fly high up into the air. 2 branch members used their lightning powers to fire bolts of electricity at the 8-year-old. Naruto saw the incoming bolts and he knew that he was toast if they hit. He felt a primal energy erupt from him. The bolts were deflected back to their users as the earth beneath him shifted. Naruto's eyes glowed white as he began subconsciously manipulating gravity around him. In a second, everyone in the arena, including Kushina and Arashi, were sent to the ground as the gravity was increased 10-fold. Naruto screamed, "What is going on? How can I stop?" Kushina shouted back, "Concentrate, Naruto. I know you can do it, son." Naruto closed his eyes and concentrated on the particles he was controlling before releasing his control over it. Kushina and the other 8 people slowly got up, their bodies thankful that the force on them was gone. Arashi clapped, "Well done, Naruto, but I have a feeling that we have only scratched the surface of what you can do." Naruto nodded, but just as he was about to walk to his mother and grandfather, he felt an overwhelming amount of fatigue, causing him to faint on the spot. Kushina ran to her son and Arashi merely stood there. He thought, "This is a beginning of a new era for our clan, and I am going to make sure my grandson is the one to lead us to glory." 2 years later, a 10-year-old Naruto stood in the middle of the training room following the katas his mother was showing him. 2 years ago, his grandfather began intensifying his training. He would train 7 days a week due to them finding out he had the adaptive regeneration of his mother. They also found out he had a form of telepathy allowing him to read minds and manipulate them only if they had eye contact. Kushina said, "Good job Naruto-kun, tomorrow we will continue your training." Naruto nodded and trudged off to his room. Kushina turned to the dark corner in the room. "What have you found out?" A shadow erupted from the corner and then turned to a hooded figure. The figure replied, "The Branch family are preparing to wage a civil war. Your uncle is responsible for the rise in riots outside the citadel." Kushina scratched her chin. "I suppose you have told my father this." The figure merely nodded. "We must guard the orb. If they gain control over it, they could use it gain control over the world." The orb was a flux of energy that contained the energy of every dead Uzumaki. Each Uzumaki had an energy core allowing them to create clones, walk up walls and do various other things. When an Uzumaki died, their dead body would be taken to the citadel and they would harvest the remaining energy, adding it to the orb of energy that lay underneath the citadel. 5 years later, over the last 5 years, tensions began increasing and recently the entire branch had risen up against the smaller royal family, stating they had a right to have everything that the royal family had. They were being led by a man named Ryu Uzumaki who was Kushina's uncle. The branch members had began to siege the citadel in the last year and the elite guard were the only thing capable of holding them back. The other lords were either old or very young to fight and they were running out of water and food. Arashi had declared that they had only one choice and that kill them all until they stopped resisting. Unknown to them, Ryu had begun using secret tunnels he knew as a kid to find his way to the orb. So a day later, every Uzumaki in the royal family who could fight attacked the branch family who camped outside the citadel. The battle was intense, but the royal family's superior powers overwhelmed the branch family's vast numbers. The battle, however, wasn't without consequence and almost half the island had been destroyed. The citadel towers being heavily damaged and many casualties had occurred. Women and children were caught in the crossfire and had perished. Kushina limped into the throne room looking for her father and Naruto. Her body regenerated the damage she sustained from the battle. Her father had grown too old to effectively fight, whereas her uncle, according to her spy, was using demonic spells to keep his youth. She saw the throne had shifted to the side, showing that her father must have gone downwards to where the orb was. Once her leg had healed, she ran towards the stairs at inhuman speeds and only ran faster when she heard Naruto screaming as well. Once she arrived, she was sickened by what she saw. Arashi lay beside Naruto dead. A gaping hole in his abdomen being the cause of death. Naruto was on his knees as he saw the man in front of him. He had faded red hair and had 3 eyes. The top eye had a purple ringed shape with tomos in it. Naruto's eyes were shadowed. He muttered, "You killed Grandpa." Ryu laughed evilly. "Yes, I suppose I killed my brother. Oh look, your mother has come to join the party." Kushina glared at her uncle and said, "Get away from the orb now." But the man didn't listen. Instead he launched a black orb at Kushina, who dodged only for it to turn around, shape itself like a lance and stab her in the chest. The man grinned, "No point resisting, Kushina, that thing destroys you down to a molecular level. In other words, you'll be atomized." Kushina coughed, "Naruto, I love you, my son. Listen to me, no matter what happens you have to live on. Please," and like that Kushina exploded in a dome of energy. Naruto screamed as he watched his mother die in front of his eyes. His powers went haywire as gravity was increased 1,000-fold. The earth itself crushed in wards. The walls crumbled and Ryu was sent straight into the ground. Ryu managed to say, "Boy, stop this madness, you are destabilizing the orb." But Naruto screamed in anguish even more, causing gravity to increase even more. Ryu's eyes widened when the stand that was holding the orb cracked and broke. The orb touched the ground in that second. The entire island was enveloped in a blue light before it exploded in a blue energy dome that could be seen from space. Inside the dome, Naruto screamed in pain as the combined energy of the deceased Uzumaki entered his body. He heard the voices of the dead within his mind and felt every part of his body was on fire. His body being reconstructed to hold that energy within him, his powers were amplified tenfold and the knowledge of his clan forcefully entered his minds. His armor changed from the normal black to black with golden outlines and a red cloak. 2 swords appeared on his back. The first was a normal katana but was known as the swords capable of hurting gods. It was known as the Sword of Kusanagi. The second sword was the legendary sword wielded by Izanagi, Tatsuka no Tsurugi. It also looked like a katana with a purple hilt and a red blade. When the dome finally dispersed, you could see Naruto lying in a crater unconscious as water slowly seeped and covered the crater. Watchtower. Everyone was assembled and they were watching the massive blue dome of energy. Superman and WW were already heading towards it. Batman had put all of them on high alert. He stated that the energy was showing massive spike in M waves and the increase in gravitational fields were inhuman, and if they didn't have superhuman durability they would be crushed almost instantly. 3 minutes later, Superman and Wonder Woman arrived just in time to see a young teen being swallowed by water. Wonder Woman was struggling to even float, whereas Superman's flight, which depended on him subconsciously affecting gravity allowing him to fly, Superman was sent crashing down into ocean. Superman was drawn straight towards Naruto, and that only made it easier for Superman to pick Naruto up and use his immense strength to jump them out of the water. Wonder Woman hooked them both to their lasso, and before long Martian Manhunter appeared along with Aquaman and Captain Comet. Martian Manhunter tried to enter Naruto's mind but found the boy was telepathic resistant, probably stemming from the teen's telepathy. Together along with Captain Comet they managed to teleport Naruto to the Watchtower. An hour later it took both Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart to create a field around Naruto so that he didn't crush everything. Naruto slowly woke up and he found himself in the weirdest of places, some kind of high-tech hospital. Naruto saw a green field around him, and 2 people dressed in green spandex and rings holding the construct. Hal Jordan, seeing Naruto awake, said, "Can you hear me, kid?" Naruto spoke, "Who are you? Where am I?" The ring spoke in a mechanical voice, translating voice, recognized language, feudal Japanese detected. Hal Jordan spoke using the ring to change his language, "I am Hal Jordan of the Justice League, we saved you." Naruto couldn't remember what had happened, only that the orb had destroyed Uzushiogakure. Oh god. Naruto's eyes widened in alarm and he began to feel physically sick. He had killed them all. He had killed his entire family. "So kid, where are you from?" Hal asked. Naruto glared at the man. He said, "I am from Uzushiogakure." Lantern sensed the anger in the boy's voice and wondered where it had come from. Martian Manhunter, Superman and Batman entered the room. The Dark Knight glared at Naruto and said, "Who are you and why did you make that explosion? Speak." The ring translated it and Naruto growled, "I don't need to be ordered by you. However, I shall indulge you. I am Uzumaki Naruto, the last Uzumaki. My home, it was destroyed," he said somberly, still in shock as to what had happened. "And your home is?" Batman asked. Naruto stared up at him with an inquisitive gaze. "Why would you like to know?" His guarded expression was suspicious to Batman, but he understood that he was startled by his new environment and that he was still under shock. Superman said softly, "We are just trying to help, kid." He knelt down and looked at him. "My home was destroyed as well." Naruto steeled himself, barely able to stop himself from crying as he answered, "I'm from Uzushiogakure, an island hidden away from the world for thousands of years." Superman sighed, "I'll bring Wonder Woman here, she is the only one who comes from a hidden island." He flew off towards the war room to fetch Diana. Batman gave the boy one last look before he excused himself. "We'll try and figure out something for you," he said as he left with Martian Manhunter. Naruto stared uncomfortably at the metal floor, wondering exactly who these people were and what they wanted from him. Hal seemingly read his mind. "If you're wondering how I ended up here, we found you at the bottom of the ocean. You almost created a tsunami." Naruto asks, "What's a tsunami?" How exactly had he created a harbor wave? He didn't remember ever using or being proficient in Suiton. Hal raised an eyebrow at his lack of knowledge, but then again, he couldn't fault the boy for it considering that his people lived isolated from the world. "You have the ability to use gravity, right?" Naruto nodded. "Well, your gravity was causing the ocean to form tidal waves. If we hadn't stopped you, you'd end up drowning half of Japan and China." Naruto's blank stare indicated that he had no idea where either of those 2 places were. An uncomfortable silence spilled into the room. Hal wasn't used to comforting teenagers and so he ended up leaving the boy in his own thoughts. Naruto didn't like this hollow husk that he was being held in. It made him miss his home even more, but dwelling on such thoughts only made him feel weak and miserable. He had to stay strong, it was his mother would have told him. Especially considering that he didn't know who these people were. "So what do you guys do?" Naruto asks. Hal grinned confidently, "We save the world." Naruto raised an eyebrow at his boastful comment but found no indication that he was lying, and his negative emotion sensing wasn't flaring up like a red light, so he knew that they didn't want to attack him. "So you are heroes then," he said. "Warriors like me." Hal said, "Yes, we are like you." He didn't know enough about the kid to make such a judgment, but Hal knew that he had to be accommodating. It was rare enough to meet a metahuman with the ability to be a planetary-level threat. It was even rarer to meet a recluse with said ability. It made him dangerous, in the wrong hands of course. Still, that didn't mean he couldn't befriend the boy. Sometimes, a good distraction was all that was needed to help someone out of their despair. Justice League War Room. Batman, Wonder Woman, Hawkgirl, Jon Stewart, Superman, Martian Manhunter and Flash sat in the war room. Batman said, "This is Uzumaki Naruto. He says that he is from a hidden island. What do you think?" Superman replied. His heartbeat was normal, he wasn't lying. Green Lantern also answered, he was startled by the hospital. He probably isn't familiar with advanced tech. Batman nodded. We have a bigger problem. He has the ability to manipulate gravity and he seems to be trained like Diana. That means he will kill any villains as a warrior. He needs a mentor. Wonder Woman replied, I can mentor him. Superman has Supergirl. Green Lantern is busy. Martian Manhunter has his niece. Batman and Flash have their students, so that leaves me and Hawkgirl. Batman nodded. Yes, out of all the people here, you are probably the only one who could show him the ropes. Does anyone object this proposition? No one raised their hands and it was decided. Uzumaki Naruto would become the protege of Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman stood up and said, I guess I'll greet my new student. She flew towards the med bay where she saw Naruto chuckling with Hal Jordan. He appeared somewhat more different than what she had assumed he would. Depressed as he was, Hal had done a good job of keeping him distracted. Naruto peeked up from Hal's dazzling light show as soon as he sensed a new presence. She floated in, landing effortlessly in front of him. Hal shut off his connection to the ring as Naruto and Diana stared at each other for a while, both wondering what this sense of familiarity was. She asks, Are you Uzumaki Naruto? Naruto grinned as he looked the hot woman up and down. He asks, What of it? Wonder Woman replied, I am Diana of the Mishchira. I have a deal for you. We of the Justice League can provide you with money and support, however we would like for you to train under me so you can familiarize yourself with this world. It sounded like a very good deal, Naruto admitted to himself. He had no idea what the world was like beyond Uzushiogakure, but his mother had told him that they had isolated themselves from the world on purpose. But he knew about the history of the one that stood in front of him. He frowned, the Mishchira, huh? You expect an Uzumaki to take orders from an Amazon? I am the last son of Uzushiogakure. I will not be commanded by a silly little girl whose mother taught her that men are the devil. Even in his loss, Naruto still had enough pride not to be ordered by someone that his family had proclaimed as an enemy. Wonder Woman drew her sword and glared at the boy. Say that again, I dare you. Naruto flipped of his bed and took the Totsuka blade from his back. A black flame danced around the red blade. Naruto glared at the woman, but she glared back. Hal quickly vouched for her. Naruto, Diana is a good person. She is just trying to help. He sighed. Fine, I accept your offer. He lowered his blade and gave her an even stare. But I will not enter the Mishchira. Wonder Woman nodded. That is acceptable, I suppose. Now first thing first, we need you to learn English. What is English? He asks. Diana gave a simple look to Hal that asked why he had not at the very least given the boy a rundown of the world. Hal shrugged. I wouldn't get my hopes up. He's even more clueless than you were. Wonder Woman ignored the lantern as she looked at her protege one last time. It's the language that we speak. Naruto merely pointed towards the door. Well then, lead the way, princess. Naruto pondered as he left the med bay, and he thought that maybe, just maybe, he might be able to move on from what had happened. Chapter 2. Transition. 10 months later, April 4, 2010. Wonder Woman's apartment, Washington, D.C. Naruto sat on a couch reading The Art of War by Sun Tzu. The past 6 months had been extremely boring. Wonder Woman had told him that he wasn't allowed in the Justice League until he turned 18 years old and he had to be home-schooled at the Wayne Manor. However, that wasn't a problem considering Naruto's speed reading and vast telepathy. It was pretty easy for him to recall everything he read. It took him a while to understand a few things like physics, but his tutor had stated that Naruto could easily reach the level of people his age in a few more months. He, however, was allowed to train with Wonder Woman and the two would spar for hours. It was a fact that they were even in hand-to-hand combat and weapon proficiency, making each of their spar extremely competitive. So far it was 30 to Naruto and 29 to Wonder Woman. He did, however, question the rule the Justice League had on not killing their enemies. He didn't understand the purpose of leaving a foe alive if he was a murderer, but since he was dependent on them, he would just follow the rule for now. However, considering that most of Wonder Woman's fights involved going to Greece, it was no surprise that no one even knew of him apart from the occupants of Greece. He had been shown once or twice helping Wonder Woman defeat Cheetah, but that was all really. He was getting antsy at not being able to fight a worthy foe. Of course there were positives, since Batman said it made him better at covert missions as he would stay under the radar of major villains. Naruto sighed as he finished the last page of the book. He threw the book to the side and walked towards the kitchen to get himself a drink when heard Wonder Woman's TV switch on. Batman's face appeared. Cage, Hal Jordan requires your assistance in Coast City. Coordinates will be sent your visor. Right. I am on it. His body glowed an ethereal gold as one of the seals on his chest summoned his new armored costume. Naruto still had the same body armor, except he now had a black metallic mask that had a red visor on it. Batman said it would be wise for Naruto to have a navigating system since he didn't know the map of America and would simply get lost. However, unknown to Naruto, Batman had a secret agenda, which was to analyze Naruto's fights and make a contingency file against Naruto if he decided to go rogue. Naruto flew out of the penthouse and towards his target with speeds equaling that of lightning. Meanwhile, Hal Jordan was fighting Sinestro and the two were equally matched. However, the tides changed when Solomon Grundy showed up. It suddenly became 2-on-1 and he called for backup, but most of the league were already fighting their own foes, so he was going to get backup in the form of his favorite teenager, Uzumaki Naruto, or as everyone else knew him, Cage. He dodged to the side as Grundy threw a car but was hit in his back by a beam from Sinestro. Hal was sent crashing into the ground and was about to get hit by Grundy when all of a sudden a blur smashed into Grundy with such force that it drove him through several buildings. Grundy landed in Coast City Park with Naruto floating over him. Naruto said calmly, "Give up, you gray monster." Grundy shouted, "Grundy, kill Armor Boy." Grundy jumped and tried to tackle, but Naruto dodged and cut him across the chest with Kusanagi. Naruto smirked. "This is my blade, Kusanagi. It can cut the strongest of beings, and you are from having such a status, but you will be enough to entertain me for now." Naruto sheathed his sword and said, "Come, beast. I will fight you with my fists." Naruto flew towards the standing Grundy and delivered a punch that shattered its jaw but watched as it healed with ease. Naruto grinned, "Yes, you will be a worthwhile foe." He appeared beneath Grundy, who was clueless as to where Naruto had vanished, and delivered an uppercut that sent him soaring into the air. Naruto merely used his gravity powers to send Grundy spiraling downwards into the ground. Grundy hit the ground hard enough to make a massive crater, however he only had minimal damage. Naruto watched as the beast rose with an enraged face before it charged at him. Naruto let the beast hit him with a massive hook that sent him flying into the water fountain. Naruto rose from the water unharmed and his red visor turned flashed blue as Naruto fired a massive beam of blue energy from his eyes that knocked Grundy back hundreds of meters. Grundy roared, but Naruto shook his head. "You've gotten boring, beast. It's time to end you." He flew towards the beast and struck a flat palm that hit Grundy in the middle of the chest, making him stumble. Naruto performed a tiger hand seal and muttered, "Fuinjutsu, prison seal." Fuinjutsu marks spread all over Grundy's body, immobilizing the beast. Naruto said, "I'll leave you here for the police. I hope that next time we meet you will give me a better fight." Naruto saw Hal Jordan fly towards him. Hal shouted, "Great job, Naruto, although you could have done with less collateral damage." Naruto snorted, "Where is the fun with that? So where did Sinestro go?" Hal Jordan replied, "He left via a portal. He wasn't expecting for me to have backup." Naruto said, "Well, I should be heading back. Diana will have my head if I don't get to the penthouse for dinner." Hal laughed, "She has you whipped, man. It's like you two are dating." Naruto retorted, "She has a boyfriend, remember, Superman." Hal shrugged. Yes, the Boy Scout managed to bag an Amazon, but for a long time their relationship has been strained. Nearly every hero in the Watchtower betted on how long they would last. I still say that won't even last the rest of the year." Naruto replied, "Well, they seemed pretty good to me this morning. Got to go, Jordan." Hal waved bye as he saw Naruto blast into the air, traveling at transonic speeds towards Washington, D.C. Diana's apartment. Naruto flew through the open window and saw Diana sitting on the couch talking to Superman through Skype. Naruto landed softly and Diana looked at her protege and asked, "Where did you go?" Naruto replied, "Coast City, fought Grundy, he was an interesting beast." Diana said, "There's some lasagna in the oven if you want some food." Naruto grinned, "Thanks, I'll eat it later." Wonder Woman merely nodded and returned to her conversation with her boyfriend. Naruto looked back at his mentor with a frown. He didn't understand what she saw in the Kryptonian, but he dare not say his opinion in front of her. Next day, April 5, 2010, Naruto walked out of the Wayne Manor with Alfred Pennyworth, who was the loyal butler for the Wayne family. Alfred spoke, "Same time tomorrow, Master Uzumaki." Naruto wore a black muscle shirt and leather jacket with a pair of blue jeans. He wore a heavy backpack that contained all of his books. Naruto said, "Thank you, Alfred." Naruto blasted himself into the air using clouds as cover, traveling at a cruising speed of 400 miles per hour, his telescopic eyesight allowing him to see the dark city known as Gotham. Gotham was an infamous city known for having the highest crime rates in all categories from theft to mass murder. It was a haven for criminals, mercenaries and corrupt government officials, and the increase in metahuman villains like Poison Ivy and Clayface didn't help. Naruto suddenly heard a scream from downwards, and the mental laughter that followed sounded feminine. He spun him towards the direction of the sound before diving with enough speed to surpass that of a bullet twice. Down at Gotham Docks, Harley Quinn, Catwoman and Poison Ivy laughed as plants held onto to a female cop. "You came at the wrong time, darling. We were just about to steal some expensive shipment." The cop screamed as Harley Quinn drew a gun, but before she could pull the trigger, a massive amount of gravity pushed them to the ground. Naruto hit the ground, his voice dark as he spoke, "You will not be killing anyone today." Catwoman looked at the teen curiously, and she could tell he would kill them in an instant. However, Harley jumped and tried to clobber Naruto with a bat. Naruto grabbed her and threw her straight at a container, almost as if she was a mere ball to him. She hit the metal container with her head and dented it before slumping unconscious. Naruto's grin didn't leave his face. She won't remember any of this. Now who else wants to get beaten? Poison Ivy looked at him. "You're strong. Why are you on the sides of the angels?" Naruto grinned, turned demonic. "Oh darling, me on the side of the angels? You don't know me at all." He charged at her but was stopped by a batarang. He turned and saw Batman looking at him. The man shook his head, telling Naruto he would handle it. Naruto smiled. "Well, that's my cue, girls. Hopefully we won't see each other under such unpleasant circumstances." Batcave Bruce replayed the fight between Grundy and Naruto. He typed a few things into his Batcomputer and the face of Silas Stone appeared on the gigantic screen. Silas asks, "Batman, I suppose you want the data from what Grundy was restricted with?" Batman merely nodded. Silas continued, "Well, from what I can deduce is that the boy used an unknown energy to induce the immobilization. However, I found that in the middle of Grundy's chest there was text written in Japanese and translated as prison or something." Batman asks, "Have you studied the energy?" Silas answered, "Well, we only had residual energy to work with, but from what we can see it is unlike any energy we have encountered. The closest it resembles is Kai from the ancient texts and the energy that the new gods use for their powers. However, it functions as an energy source that can be converted into other types of energy like thermal or electrical energy." Batman scratched his chin. "So what you're saying is that this energy has many applications?" Silas nodded. "Yes, it could enhance a human's current condition and make them high supernatural in terms of physical aspect. The person who managed to seal Grundy has only scratched the surface of what his energy could do, and I am pretty sure he doesn't know how to use it properly yet." Batman replied, "Thank you for the information, Drivestone. I'll be sure to contact you if something else comes up." The screen switched off and Bruce sighed in his seat. Alfred asks, "Sir, are you still spying on Master Uzumaki?" Bruce replied, "Yes, his powers are a secret to all of us and he continues to slowly show more and more of his abilities." He pressed a button and two metahumans appeared on the screen. "These are the youngest metahumans that I have classified as planetary level threats." Alfred read them out: Severe Threat Level, Supergirl, Kid Flash and Cage. Bruce nodded. Supergirl has the potential to become as strong as her cousin, and Cage has proved he could go in a fistfight with Wonder Woman and beat her in all categories with the exception of experience. His gravity powers allow him to increase his super strength by making things light. Supergirl may be in the Justice League, but she is far from being mature, and Cage is getting antsy sitting and learning all day long. His fight with Grundy proved that. Alfred sighed. "If I may, Master Bruce, why don't you simply allow Naruto to join the Justice League? By all means, he is capable of fighting the foes of both Wonder Woman and Superman." Bruce leaned to his chair and replied, "Surprisingly, many have voted Naruto to not be allowed to join the League until such a time that Wonder Woman and the rest of the original team members agree that he is ready." Alfred shook his head. "Naruto is a warrior and an idle. Warriors are always irritable. He wants to fight someone strong as that is the way he was brought up. I am sure what could happen if he finds out that you and the other Leaguers are extensively studying each of his moves." Bruce answered, "He will turn and might become our worst enemy. I am sure many other people have taken an interest at Cage and his powers. Cage isn't affiliated with the Justice League, so he could leave if he was given a proposition by one of our enemies like Lex Luthor or worse, Amanda Waller. Alfred checked his watch. Now if you excuse me, sir, I'll be bringing Master Dick from his school. Alfred excused himself and walked out of the Batcave towards the garage. Bryce sighed as he looked at the screen. He had a lot of thinking to do on the question that was ringing in his head. What does he do with Uzumaki Naruto? Diana's missions usually involved her traveling to Thymesakara, but Naruto swore never to enter a place that the Greek gods have full jurisdiction over. It was pure blasphemy if a child of the Shinto entered the lands of the Greek god. So Naruto usually stayed in Washington, where the only villain over there was the mysterious Amanda Waller. So Bruce thought of a way to ease all these young sidekicks into the Justice League. First step was to take them to the Hall of Justice and from there allow them to work in a few low-profile missions. Now the only question that remained was which sidekicks would join Cage. Chapter 3. Naruto had responded to a distress call by the police. Cheetah was back and she was out for blood. Naruto flew towards the humanoid cat's location. Wonder Woman had disappeared somewhere last night and Naruto didn't have the luxury of being able to contact her. Barbara Minerva aka the Cheetah cackled as she began slicing the policeman's weapons. They had surrounded the shopping mall which she currently occupied. The sounds of gunshots scared the people in the mall into a frenzy, which gave Cheetah the needed distraction to get close and begin the massacre. Cheetah began chalking the last policeman and hoisted him upwards. She heard the familiar clicking of armor in the distance. A bloodthirsty grin placated her lips. Cage. It's been far too long. Naruto landed in a crater formed in the middle of the mall. I would have thought you would have learnt your lesson by now, Cheetah. Cheetah threw the limp body of the policeman and turned to face her adversary. She grinned ferally. Oh, and what would that lesson be? Naruto unsheathed Kusanagi. That you cannot beat me. Cheetah laughed. I've been upgraded. She dashed towards her long claws unsheathed. Naruto stepped backwards in surprise at Cheetah's newfound speed. He used his sword to block a powerful slash towards his torso. He jumped to the side to avoid another. Cheetah's claws ripped through an entire pillar holding the mall. Damn, she is not just faster. Cheetah shouted, tell me where your master is, Cage. Naruto's visor flashed red and the cheetah was sent to the ground by a wave of gravity. I am no one's slave, Cheetah. You sure fooled me. She cackled, trying her best to rile the young hero up. Naruto kicked the downed beast and sent her through the opening mall and crashing into a car. She groaned as she slowly got up. I need to distract him. Naruto was suddenly in front of her. He was faster than her. Cheetah gritted her teeth as she went sent flying into the air and was sent back hurtling back into the street by Naruto's gravity pull. She coughed up blood. He was ruthless, even more so than her rival, Wonder Woman. She got up slowly and saw a blue energy beam coming towards her with what little balance she had. She rolled out of its way only to be hit by an explosion of a vehicle next to her. She lay on the ground and saw Naruto's Kusanagi pointed between her eyes. Yield. She growled, never. And in a flash, she got up, surprising Naruto, and her claws clashed against his armor. Naruto dodged a roundhouse kick but was punched in the torso, sending him flying into a car. The cheetah was getting faster and stronger. He flew into the air just in time to watch Cheetah barreling into the dented car and hurling it across the street. A powerful jet of chakra flew from his visor and went towards Cheetah, but she managed to dodge it. In an act of desperation, Naruto increased the gravity hundredfold, sending Minerva to the ground but also crushing everything in the block. Naruto was shocked to see Cheetah resisting the increase in gravity. Her body was turning more and more into that of a beast. A sigh of relief overcame Naruto when a lasso whipped past him and around the cheetah's neck. Cheetah was sent flying through the already damaged mall. Naruto returned the gravity to normal as Wonder Woman zoomed past him and towards the injured cheetah. Naruto followed in suit. Cheetah was capable of keeping up with just Naruto, but the deadly combination of him and Wonder Woman proved too much for her. She was knocked unconscious by a blow to the head by Naruto. Naruto said, "Where were you?" Wonder Woman replied, "Metropolis, I was assisting Superman against Metallo and Lex Luthor." Naruto merely grunted. "I am heading home, now." Wonder Woman shouted, "Aren't you forgetting what today is?" Naruto shouted back as he was about to take off, "No, I will preserve my excitement should it prove it to be everything that was promised." Of course, he cared very little about this little get-together that Batman and the other Leaguers had planned for their little sidekicks. From his experience, Batman had a way of lying without actually lying. Hall of Justice. Naruto and Wonder Woman arrived a few minutes later than Flash and Kid Flash. Kid Flash turned around to his mentor. Ha, I told you we wouldn't be the last ones here. Naruto raised his eyebrow at the childish speedster but kept quiet. He wasn't acquainted with any of the sidekicks except for Robin. Naruto said, bored. Shall we get going then, Batman? I do have other things to do. It was too predictable even for the caped crusader. Naruto knew that Batman would be up to something and surprise he was right. The Hall of Justice was a front for the Justice League whilst the real headquarters was in space. It was classified and he doubted that any of the sidekicks knew about it except for Robin. Green Arrow's sidekick snarled, like what? Naruto looked at the boy with a lazy eye. He asked, what was your name again? Red Hood, Red, Speedy. That was it. Speedy's eyebrows twitched, you damned. He was silenced when he was faulted to the ground by Naruto flexing his arm. Naruto said, I can control gravity, Arrow Boy. There is nothing you can actually do that will harm me. Kid Flash announced, gravity manipulation, that is so cool. Naruto sighed and pushed past everyone as he made his way to the Hall of Justice. Batman and Wonder Woman both heard Naruto muttering something about immature brats and that he would collapse the building if he was put on a team with them. Batman sincerely hoped that Naruto wouldn't do such a thing. Inside Hall of Justice, Naruto was reading a book written by Arthur Schaffernuer as he watched Batman and the rest of the Justice League mutter a few unimportant things. However, Speedy or Arrow Boy had decided to get cranky and take out his justified frustration on the Justice League. Speedy or Roy Harper snarled, that's it. You promised us a real look inside. Aquaman replied, it's a first step. Martian Manhunter added, you've been granted access that very few get. Roy snorted, gesturing to the window above where many people were taking pictures. He snarled, oh really? Who cares what side of the glass we're on? Green Arrow pleaded, calm down, Roy. Roy snorted, you're telling me to calm down. You and your pathetic league are treating us as if we're children. This isn't even the real headquarters. The last bit was directed towards the sidekicks. The sidekicks had a look of betrayal but nonetheless kept quiet. Aquaman said, you're not helping your cause here. But Roy looked towards his fellow sidekicks and said, well? Robin spoke, well what? It's a first step. Naruto closed his book and looked at Roy. He said, what is your point, Arrow Boy? You're not going to change their mind. You're too immature to join the league. They think of every sidekick as cannon fodders that needs to be controlled. Roy looked at Naruto with a glare but nonetheless muttered, you're right. He proceeded to walk out of the door. No one tried to stop. Neither the older heroes nor the sidekicks who were stunned by Naruto's comment. Batman's eyes trailed towards Naruto, who was already seemed to be turning heel. Naruto announced, I am heading home. Please inform me on how the induction goes. His voice was dripping with a mixture of sarcasm and indifference. The sound of heavy armored footsteps echoed through the silent room. Batman narrowed his eyes at Naruto. He could have sworn he saw Naruto's visor flash red for a second. Hours later, Naruto silently stalked the streets of Washington, D.C. He was hungry after doing his usual exercises and homework routine. People walking around him, hurrying to work or to whatever they were usually doing, humans. How odd it was that he said it with such disdain. After reading the minds of so many people, Naruto beginning to see why the Uzumaki clan decided to hide themselves from the world. Naruto trudged through the streets so busy in thought until he was interrupted by a beeping on his watch. He pressed a button and saw Robin's face appear. Cage, we need your help. Naruto sighed. What is it? We've been captured by Cadmus. I'll send you the coordinates. I'll be right there. With a burst of speed, Uzumaki Naruto had disappeared from the street as if he was never there. Unknown to him, however, a small camera on the street sent a message to the owner, and that was when Naruto had finally been recognized by the infamous Amanda Waller. Cadmus Naruto, dressed in his armor, flew straight towards Cadmus, his HUD identifying Robin, Aqualad, Kid Flash and an unknown friendly in combat with one hideous blue monster. A grin formed as he increased his speed. Superboy was struggling to deal with Blockbuster. The being was for some odd reason too strong for the Superman clone. Blockbuster grabbed Superman's arm and threw him into the far wall. Aqualad quickly moved to the side as a blur smashed into Blockbuster's chest. The being was sent through the wall and into the air. The blur continued to follow the trajectory of the blue-skinned monster. Aqualad asked Robin, why did you call Cage? We didn't need a him. The guy is probably going to kill Desmond. Robin face-palmed. He muttered, oh shit. He is going to kill Desmond. We need to go after him. You're not going anywhere. A gruff voice scared the hell out of the teenagers. Batman and the Justice League had arrived. Robin turned around and quickly said, we can explain. Superboy, who had just climbed out of the wall, said, "We don't need to explain anything." Batman and Superman's eyes traveled to the House of L insignia placed on the boy's chest. A frown was etched on Superman's face. Robin asks, "But we have to stop Naruto from killing Blockbuster." Superman answered, "Supergirl is handling it. Now please tell us what happened here." Robin scratched his head and said, "Well, back with Naruto. The beast landed in a children's playground. Naruto flew above it. So, you're the beast that Robin was talking about. You're not tough at all. I suppose it's time I finished you off." His silver blade glistened in the moonlight and he pointed it at the beast before beginning his descent. However, his HUD detected a blur about to him and he was forced to dodge. He hit the ground to the side of the beast. Naruto dusted himself and saw Supergirl look down at him. "Ah, Supergirl, what are you doing here?" Supergirl spoke with an authoritative voice, "I can't allow you to kill that beast." "Why can't you? It's not even human." "Yes, it is. It's a human transformed into a beast." Naruto questioned her logic. "Yes, but it is now a beast." Supergirl sighed, "I was told to stop you." Naruto grinned in his mask, "So do you want to fight?" "I haven't fought a worthy foe in a long time." A very dark aura appeared around him and gravity increased around him. The swings bent and the metal poles started to bend towards the ground. He disliked the girl immensely. She was his age and yet she was allowed into the Justice League. He doubted that it was because of her skill but because Superman was her cousin. Supergirl warily asked her fellow hero to stand down. Cage didn't like her for obvious reasons. He said she was spoiled and had no skill. She resented him because of his comments, but they never actually fought and she honestly didn't want to fight him. "I don't want to fight. Also, the Justice League is waiting." Naruto sighed, "Fine. You're going to take the beast then." And with those words he flew towards the destroyed Cadmus building. Supergirl looked at the icky beast. She thought, perhaps I should have let Cage kill it. Cadmus Naruto arrived to see Superboy standing up to the Justice League and demanding that they be allowed to do missions. Naruto laughed internally at idiocy of letting this group do missions, but he knew that Batman was in a pickle, especially when Robin sided with the clone. Wonder Woman approached her student. She hissed at him, "Please tell me you weren't involved with this." Naruto answered with a smirk, "No, sadly this isn't my handiwork, although I must admit that they make a good demolition team, but I would have wiped this building out of existence and the clone wouldn't be standing here." Wonder Woman nodded. "We are going to talk about what you said in the Hall of Justice later." Naruto merely shrugged. Batman said, "Fine, but there will be some conditions as to what you can or cannot do. You can be overruled by any member of the Justice League." That last bit was directed towards Naruto. Supergirl, who heard Batman, looked smug but decided to keep her expression neutral when she saw Naruto's visor flash red. Naruto said, "If you excuse me, I have to head home." Everyone watched as Naruto blasted himself into the air. Superman gritted his teeth at the blatant disrespect the teenager held towards his elders, and WW narrowed her eyes dangerously. Her protege was doing this on purpose and she would find out why, one way or another. Wonder Woman quickly flew after Naruto. She arrived at her penthouse seconds after Naruto. She quickly moved to grab Naruto's shoulders. She watched as Naruto's masked face turned towards her, his visor flashing red. Ignoring the threat of violence, she asked softly, "Naruto, what is going on with you today?" Naruto replied, "Nothing. Leave me alone." "No, I will not leave you alone until you tell me what has come over you today." Naruto questioned, "Why do you care?" Diana's facial expression explained it all. She cared about him. "I care about you, Naruto. There is something bothering you. I just want to help you. Sadly, this is a matter that only I can resolve. Besides, you are only doing this because I am only your so-called protege. You and the Justice League just want me in the palm of your hands so that you can use me whenever you want and discard of me when you please." Diana protested, "That's not true." But Naruto didn't care. His apathy had only increased in the past few days. He saw no reason to care about these people. He saw no reason to live at all. His entire purpose of living had been destroyed. "This is about Uzushiogakure, isn't it?" Naruto didn't even reply as he walked upstairs. His silence spoke for itself. Diana had expected this. She knew that Naruto would resent this world just like she had. She was surprised that it had taken this long for him to become depressed. She at least had her people, her family, and something to fight for. Naruto had nothing, and from the looks of things, he was beginning to question why he was fighting anyway. Naruto's room. Naruto stared at the only photo he had of his mother. He looked at how happy she looked, how happy they looked. His mind flashed to the memory of his mother being atomized and he unconsciously clenched his fists. Damn him. Why did he have to destroy everything? He hated Ryu for doing what he did. If only he could justice for what that man had did to his family, he would have made him suffer. Unbeknownst to the young Uzumaki, Ryu was helped by outside forces that wanted Uzushiogakure destroyed. 3 days later, Mount Justice Naruto, Kid Flash, Robin, Superboy and Aqualad all lined up in front of Batman, who explained to them the terms of service. You will do this on league terms. He pointed to Red Tornado. Red Tornado has volunteered to live here and supervise you. Black Canary will be your fighting instructor and I will deploy you on missions. Batman finished with a tone of finality. He gazed at each of the young sidekicks and paused at Cage, who gave him the tiniest of nods. You will be deployed on covert operations. Aquaman began to explain. The existence of Cadmus and their operations has shown us of the need for a team that is capable of acting under the radar. Batman finished. The 6 of you will be that team. Kid Flash excitedly exclaimed, awesome, I can't wait to kick ass. Robin asked the more obvious question, wait, you said 6. Batman pointed to the Zeta tube and the team turned to see the Martian Manhunter escorting a young female Martian with red hair. That is the Martian's niece, Miss Martian. I believe she will be a unique asset on missions. Everyone began to introduce themselves to the new addition. Miss Martian seemed very flustered with all the attention. Naruto turned heel and walked towards the Zeta tube. Batman said, Cage. Naruto turned towards the Caped Crusader. What? Batman said, the Justice League has decided to put you on this team to see whether you can be inducted into the League. There are conditions. Naruto snorted. A scorching fire emitted from his armor. Do not think me so weak to beg, Batman. Batman narrowed his eyes as Cage left the mountain. Unknown location in the middle of a dark room. Several screens with silhouettes made out of light watched the footage of Cage fighting Cheetah and his attack on Blockbuster was played throughout the room. A deep and gruff voice acts. I thought all the Uzumaki had been destroyed. A childish boyish voice replied, he is the last one. I have been keeping tabs on him and might I say, he is more than I expected. A feminine voice said uncaringly, he was not responsible for the destruction of our Cadmus facility. I don't see what is so interesting about this Cage. The boy replied, of course you wouldn't, you don't appreciate anything besides your goddamned hive. A growl was emitted from the screen with the silhouette of a woman. The first voice replied, from the intel we have received, Cage can still be swayed to our side. Another voice agreed, yes. He would be an irreplaceable asset and his unique physiology would allow us to create more powerful clones. No one voiced any opposition. The first voice announced, very well. It is decided, Uzumaki Naruto will see the light one way or another. Chapter 4 Metropolis STAR Labs July 10, 2300. They say that knowledge is power, and it wasn't until a few days ago that Naruto realized how much it applied to him. He may be a metahuman that could fight with the upper echelon of superpowered beings, but he was destitute of information. Information that could provide him with the means to leave the Justice League. Currently, Batman had all the keys, he could always go rogue, but without any contacts and any means of hiding, Naruto would be running without a sense of direction. He would essentially be blind and he would rather not have the Justice League hot on his tails every day and night. Even he was not naive enough to believe that he could beat all of the Justice League. Wonder Woman was the only person that could kill him and some like Superman had enough power to severely injure him. He had therefore decided that he should procure some information on the Justice League. STAR Labs were known to have a large database on metahumans. He had recently developed an affinity for computer hacking. He realized that STAR Labs was virtually unhackable from the outside and so you would need to infiltrate the building. He was dressed in a common thief's clothes, a pair of gloves and a black balaclava. He had managed to already get into the building. It had been relatively simple. Many scientists did overnight shifts and since he was not exactly a metahuman he didn't trigger the alarm. He stole on of the computer scientist's ID badge and used short electric to bursts to disrupt the electric systems. He had already knocked out the security guard and placed a constructed loop. So here he was inside the main server room. He would install his already pre-programmed Trojan into the server and download as much information as he could. He just hoped that everything would go according to plan. Unfortunately, even the best laid plans could go awry. He had installed the Trojan and subsequently began to copy all the relevant data. He sent out several other Trojans and download irrelevant data to get STAR Labs of his tail. When he removed the USB stick from the terminal and unplugged his laptop, It was time to pack it up and leave. He threw all of his gear into his backup and walked towards the server room door. He ran out of the room and ran to the stairs. He had around 5 minutes until someone noticed the unconscious guard. As he was approaching the last 5 floors, he heard from the bug he had planted in the security guard's office, "Rick, do you still have some of?" Naruto cursed. He increased his speed and jumped the last 2 floors. He heard, "Intruder, intruder on the ground floor." Shit. They would activate defense mechanisms, he would need to use his powers. The question is, what powers should he use? He decided on electricity and super speed. He sped out of the stairwells and emerged in the lobby area. Superhuman powers detected. A scanner was about to scan him, but Naruto was not having that. He released a powerful wave of electricity that short-circuited all of the equipment. Freeze. The clicking of a gun was heard behind him. Naruto sighed, and in a flash the man's weapons were dismantled and Naruto was behind him. He saw the doors were closing and a metal door was beginning to lower. Using his superhuman speed, he ran through the door and sighed in relief as he managed to escape STAR Labs. He would have thought that their security system would be advanced enough to tackle Superman, but he guessed wrong. Then again, he was reminded why exactly they didn't need such an advanced security system when Supergirl appeared in front of him. She said calmly, "Turn yourself in and I won't have to harm you." Naruto didn't want to have to deal with her, so he used the one thing he brought to counteract her. A very powerful flashbang. It would cause her to momentarily lose her sight. He threw it at her face and it exploded. A bright explosion of light covered her vision and she was forced to cover her eyes. By the time she had recovered from it, Naruto had disappeared into an alleyway 10 blocks away. Supergirl growled as she flew up into the air. She knew how he looked like. She would find him. Using her X-ray vision and superhuman magnification, she scanned the city. It was a slow process. She was looking for the man. Unfortunately, he had seemingly disappeared like a ghost. July 11th, Mount Justice, 10 a.m. I tell you, Batman, he was a pro. He didn't leave a single clue behind. Supergirl told Batman about everything that had occurred. He fried the security footage, he didn't leave any DNA, and he managed to stun me. Batman was impressed, although he would never express it. This young thief had showed the panache of an expert strategist. He had planned everything from cover to cover. Even if he was found, which would be very hard to do, he wouldn't be able to put him in jail. Any evidence the detective had gained beside what he actually stole would be circumstantial. Superman and Supergirl had 2 main weaknesses, kryptonite and magic. This thief exploited one of their strengths. He knew about Kryptonians' overpowered senses and he used that against them. Batman gruffly answered, "I will look into it." He marched towards the Zeta Tube intent on investigating this later on, but he needed to head over to the company first. Supergirl wanted some food and she smelt something very delicious coming from the kitchen. Naruto was using his superhuman hearing to listen on the conversation. A smile played on his lips. Despite the minor setback and the fact that he never wanted to be seen by anyone in the Justice League, he was still happy that everything was going according to his plan, or at least the rough outlines he had come up with. He flipped the egg and the bacon, making sure that they were cooked to his standards. He heard, "Something smells good in here. Damn it." He turned around and he and Supergirl exchanged eye contact. She asks, "Who are you?" It was of course the first time she had seen him without his visor on or his full body armor. Batman had advised that he need not wear his visor in front of his new team. Supergirl stared at the teenager in front of her. He was quite tall, around 6'3". He had gravity-defying spiky blood-red hair and glaring purple amethyst eyes. He had a very muscular build, not as muscular as Superman but muscular enough to tell Supergirl that he was a fighter. Naruto smiled. "Oh, I forgot you don't recognize me without my visor. K." Supergirl almost stepped. "Cage." "Yes, that's me." To Supergirl, the awkwardness of being with her rival, Cage, was enough for her to want to leave. "So tell me, Supergirl, what is a member of the Justice League doing here?" Supergirl sighed. "It doesn't matter, I should probably get going." Naruto decided to cut the teen some slack. "You can stay, I made enough for 2. Supergirl said nervously, "I don't want to interrupt your breakfast." Naruto chuckled. "It's fine. Take a seat and I'll finish up for you." Supergirl looked at Cage with surprise. He seemed very mellow compared to his fiery persona as a superhero. If he hadn't given her the clues to figure out his identity, she would have sworn that he was a different person. Thanks, Cage," Naruto said. "My name is Naruto." Supergirl decided to reciprocate. "I am Kara." A part of her wondered why he was being so friendly, and a creeping suspicion was beginning to sink in before she quashed it. Naruto quickly plated the food and led Supergirl to the dining room. This is great. Kara complimented his cooking as she finished her breakfast at record speed. Naruto merely chuckled as he sipped some orange juice. He asks, "So what made you decide to come here?" Kara replied, "There was an incident in Metropolis last night and I needed Batman's help." Her Justice League signaling device began to vibrate, telling her that she was needed at the watchtower. She looked at him apologetically, but Naruto gave her the briefest of nods and she flew out of the room at breakneck speeds. Naruto grinned. It was necessary for his plan that he acted as if there was nothing going on. He needed the Justice League to trust him and to feel as though he didn't hate them. He finished his drink and headed towards the exercise room. Recognized B03 Aqualad. Recognized B02 Kid Flash, B01 Robin. Naruto saw the three of them emerge from the Zeta beam. They seemed rather unhappy, but their venture to pick up Speedy and recruit to the team. Naruto could tell that they failed. Kid Flash sped up to Naruto. "Is he here yet?" Naruto replied, "Red Tornado isn't, but he should be here soon. I am going to the training room." Wally looked at his other fellow teammates. "Well, isn't he peachy?" Robin shrugged. "Let him be, Wally. We both know he doesn't exactly want to be here." Wally bluntly said, "Or belong here." Aqualad looked at him with disappointment and Wally quickly finished, "I mean, it's just that he is too powerful to be here. I doubt Batman is going to let us fight any of the heavy hitters." Both Robin and Aqualad doubted that he meant it that way but kept their mouths shut before walking to the holographic computer. 1 hour later, training room. Naruto was about done with his katas. He had practiced his weapon throwing and his kenjutsu beforehand. He stopped when he heard the mechanical wearing noise behind him. Red Tornado's mechanical voice echoed throughout the room. "You must be Cage. The other members of the team seem to be bonding without you." Naruto replied, "And that concerns you?" Red Tornado merely replied, "Yes, it lowers the odds of you being able to successfully work as a unit." Naruto turned the red mechanical being and shrugged. Now we both know that the Justice League doesn't do a lot of team building exercises. I believe you are more worried about my behavior, that my apathy for my teammates would cause them to be in danger. An accurate assessment. I was told that you were quite perceptive. Will that be a problem?" Naruto grinned as he spun his katana. "No, not at all. If they are useful in a mission, I will be sure to use them to their fullest capacity. It's like playing a game of chess, really. For now they are merely pawns." Red Tornado finished, "But they may promote to a piece of higher significance." Naruto smiled at the droid. "Exactly." He grabbed a towel and walked out of the room. Red Tornado muttered, "A most worrying assessment, but an accurate one nonetheless." Naruto's cynical view on how the team was viewed by the Justice League was relatively accurate, but to Red Tornado it was worrisome was that if they weren't useful, what action would Naruto take against them? Would he leave on the battlefield bleeding? Would he support them? He would watch the young teenager more closely. 10 minutes later, Naruto, there is a disturbance in the Happy Harbor power plant. The team has already been sent ahead of you. By the time Red Tornado had finished giving the order, Naruto was already out of Mount Justice and was flying towards the power plant at Mach 3. With the rest of the team, they were getting beaten left, right and center. This new android that called itself Twister was capable of generating tornadoes and high-powered wind blasts. Wally charged at the android, but he was deflected by a powerful wave of wind. The android moved to its side to avoid a punch from Superboy before throwing him away. Twister was capable of reading their movements, and their simplistic patterns allowed it to easily calculate the next mode of action. "Where is Red Tornado? I didn't come here to fight children." Wally growled, "We are not children." If the android were capable of making anyone, it would have, but it instead voted to simply blast Kid Flash into a steel beam. Robin shouted, "Kid!" He threw some batarangs at Twister's armor but found that the android's armor was too strong to be cut through. Twister fired a tornado at Robin, who used one of the beams to acrobatically throw himself out of the way. He rolled out of the way of another jet of wind before throwing some pellets of smoke at the android. Robin shouted, "Now Superboy." Twister, however, had enough of playing around and grabbed Superboy's incoming fist and punched him in the abdomen, sending him flying into the wall. This game has gone far enough. He flew out of the building and found himself moving towards the side as a blur smashed into the ground. Another child coming out to play. Cage grinned, "Since you were able to defeat the others, I will indulge you. Show me your best." Twister flew into the air. "Very well." Wind twisters blew out of his gauntlets and into the atmosphere. Naruto observed as the skies darkened and lightning began to accumulate around him. Kid Flash and the team who had regained their bearings ran out of the room. A jet of lightning began to rip through the air and was aimed towards Naruto, who merely deflected with his sword. A powerful jet of energy zoomed towards Twister, who merely threw a bolt of lightning towards it. An explosion rippled before Twister, and in a second Naruto was before him and the two began a duel in the air. Twister's wind against Naruto's black fire. Kid Flash said in awe, "Did you know Cage could do that?" Robin shook his head, "It's a first for me." Twister dodged a sword strike but was kicked towards the ground by Naruto's high-speed roundhouse kick. The android admitted, "You are very powerful." Naruto, instead of speaking, flew toward the android at Mach 4 speeds with his sword ready to decapacitate its head. Twisters fired a powerful stream of wind towards Naruto, but his katana was surrounded by black fire that lit the wind-up as if it were oil. The team watched in fascination as a black stream of fire flew towards Twister, and before the android could react, his armor was melting. Naruto's sword impacted into the android's core, causing it to die. With a snap of his finger, the black flames disappeared. Kid Flash sped up to the standing Naruto and the now disassembled android. He said, "Dude, that was sick." Naruto's visor and flashed red. Kid Flash gulped as he saw daunting and threatening Naruto looked with his armor. "I was just doing my job. Return the broken pieces back to the cave. I believe that Red Tornado would want to have a closer look." He turned to the others and said, "I trust that you learnt your lesson now." Superboy growled, "And what would that be?" Naruto merely replied, "That charging into battle without any strategy is a bad idea. There will come a time when I cannot swoop in and save you all. If you don't take this seriously, you will die." With that, Naruto flew away from a team that had lost their jovial happiness about their victory as they came to terms with Naruto's words. He was after all correct. The truth as to why Batman hadn't assigned any missions began to enter their minds. They simply weren't ready. Hours later, Washington, D.C. dojo. Naruto flipped over to avoid a sword strike. He kicked Wonder Woman's back and she was forced to roll over to avoid Naruto's incoming heel kick. The two warriors duked it out. Sounds of metal clanging and grunting could be heard from outside. The dojo was part of an abandoned warehouse that Bruce Wayne had brought and renovated for her use. The walls were soundproof and had multiple racks of different weapons in front of them. She grabbed Naruto's thrusted arm and in one fluent motion disarmed him. She spun her blade and aimed the circular hilt at his kidney. Naruto grunted at the jab but was quickly thrown into the wall. He grabbed a bow staff and spun it for good measure. Wonder Woman grinned as she dashed towards him at breakneck speeds. Naruto used his bow staff to keep the distance between her. She dashed underneath his jab and was about to hit him again, but Naruto anticipated the movement and grabbed her arm in a twisting motion, causing the blade to drop. Wonder Woman wasn't done as she swiped his leg and Naruto fell to the ground. She straddled him and with her arm held both of his arms above his head in a steel-like grip. Her other arm had already grabbed the downed sword and was pointing at Naruto's neck. Naruto could feel her hot breath on his face as she leant down and looked into his purple eyes with a mixture of mirth and daringness, as if she was daring him to escape. He said, "It's your win, Wonder Woman." She smiled and released her grip on his hand. "It was a good duel as always, Naruto." She threw him a water bottle to her side and Naruto caught it. "Batman told me about your fight with the android named Twister. He expressed concerns about how you treated your teammates." Naruto gulped down some water. He responded, "I told them the truth. They think just because they fought a few villains over the years that they can win any battle. They dived headfirst into battle and expected that they would emerge victorious. It's wishful thinking." Wonder Woman sat beside her partner. "You must understand, Naruto, that unlike the two of us, they weren't trained from when they could walk. They lead normal lives and for the most part, they don't fight villains. You can't expect them to fight as well as you, and you can't expect them to fight as good as the others in Uzushiogakure. When I first joined the Justice League, I saw the same thing you see with your team. I saw a team of powerful people incapable of working as a unit. It was only due to Batman's tactical knowledge that we were able to win. So give them a chance." Naruto sighed. "Fine." Diana smiled. She stood up. "I am heading over to Metropolis. I trust that you will be fine." Naruto merely nodded. He watched as she headed out of the dojo and towards the shower room, no doubt getting ready to go see Superman. Naruto found himself wondering whether he was beginning to develop feelings for Diana. He thought, "That's absurd. I would never fall for an Amazon. Besides, she was with Superman anyway." He looked at the fallen bow staff and picked it up. He spun it around his neck and impaled it into the wall. He quashed all of the emotions he was currently feeling as a darkness spread through his body. He had a plan, and the plan was the most important thing right now. It was more important than the powerful feeling of loneliness that he was feeling. He thought, back in Uzushiogakure, you were royalty, you were important, but here you are nothing. It had taken a while to come to terms with that, but he realized that it had its perks. He was in effect a ghost, and ghosts didn't leave a trail. Wonder Woman's apartment. DC Washington. Batman had easily snuck into the apartment. Wonder Woman and Naruto both relied on their skill to ward off intruders rather any form of technology. He walked into Naruto's room, he saw a tripwire and jumped over it. Well, it appeared Naruto was quite paranoid. The young Uzumaki's room was quite plain. A queen-sized bed was situated in the middle of the room. A rather intricate computer set up onto the left side beside the wooden wardrobe. He walked to the computer and pressed a few buttons. He narrowed his eyes when he saw the level of encryption that Naruto had put on the machine. He returned the computer back to sleep mode before walking around the room. He stopped at what seemed to be an Othello board with checker, chess and shogi pieces being placed around the board in a seemingly random way. The detective retreated from the room and thought, "What game are you playing, Naruto?" He couldn't stop feeling the nagging feeling that Naruto was planning something big. Back at the dojo, Naruto grinned as a kanji seal on his arm glowed red. He activated the camera bug in his room and found Batman walking out of his room. His experiment had worked. He figured out that Batman was a master of infiltration, but he was incapable of detecting any of his seals. A weakness that Naruto would happily expose. It was time for his next move.